But how do you think people can sort of embrace that anti-white wallness, especially in London, a bit more? Because it is still very much a part of the programming.
I think generally, a lot of people are escaping from the general art world. I mean, that's why fairs are dying at the moment. 'Cause people, the model's dying.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't work anymore. You know, and there's many layers as to why it doesn't work, and people are looking for change, and that's why, you know, you got spaces like Ginny or Frederick popping up in a fish and chip shop. You know, or you got you know, currently there's a new gallery called Canada, I think they're called, and they're just in a hallway of someone's house. And,
oh, you're kidding?
Yeah, it's down in Clapton. Yeah, just like people just going into like different spaces and trying, like right now you're not actually in a space, you're in the side room of a bakery.
Yeah.
This is the hot cross bun room.
Love it.
And so, you know, it's just finding those spaces and trying to sort of work within them. And I think people are sort of getting away from it because they just want new ways to display art and new aesthetics and new ideas to go with it.
Yeah. It's interesting what you say about fairs dying. Do you think there's the obvious reason, like you say, people are looking for new experiences with art. But I think also the collector class is changing very rapidly. How have you found that has affected fairs in general?
I mean, this is the thing. I think we kind of, a lot of us in London depend on the same group of collectors, and you'll see a lot of them, and they're great. But what people don't realize, we can tap into other avenues. There's so many people making money from different avenues these days. There's like YouTube people, there's influencers, there's always, and it's people that maybe one might, you know, put down, but you don't realize they actually have influence, they have capital, they have, and they can provide, they can sort of, you know, contribute to this economy of what we're doing here. And so, you know, recently we've been working a lot with musicians and record executives, because I used to work in the music industry myself.
Yeah.
So I actually reconnected, you know, it's a funny story actually, at Freeze 24, I reconnected with my old boss, Dark as Bees, and he bought work off me. But I didn't know he was coming, and it was like a nice surprise from this guy called, shout out to Wale brought him through. So Wale brought this, he said, yeah, I've got a little surprise for you. I had no idea. And I was like, is that Darkers? And he's like, yeah. So I used to be an intern at Island Record, and Darkers at the time was the A&R guy, and I used to work for him. And he came through and bought artwork. And it's just like, so, you know, Wale being a perfect example is like people and his advisors tapping into the music world, or, you know, and bringing them into the art world and getting them to like sort of explore art in different ways. So
it's interesting that contemporary art is one of the last industries to kind of pick up on the kind of idea that you should be having as many different avenues and as many different influences as possible. Because, you know, you look at music, I think it's something I was talking about with Jacob, is sort of, you look at like Lily Allen, for example, and the album is not just an album, it's like an experience where you Google David Harbour, you look at the Architectural Digest video on YouTube, you know, it's like, it's all of these different, it becomes an experience, right? It's not just a piece of media, a piece of art. And it's very like late capitalist, fine, but we live in a late capitalist society. And it's fascinating to me that contemporary art just hasn't really caught up with that. Like, we're not doing these sort of like overlapping collaborations with music houses, with fashion houses. Do you think there's, I mean, obviously there's room for it, but do you think there's a reason why contemporary art hasn't caught up with this?
To play devil's advocate, I understand from most galleries it's enough work to try and create form and sort of like concisely put something together that's clean and does the job. To think about all these other strands, it's sometimes more or less the impossible for a lot of people. And I understand that completely, because I realized the other day I haven't done my dream show yet, because I'm constantly trying to put on stuff that works for like maybe the neighborhood, or works for, you know, it's just, there's just so many layers to it. And I think we get caught up in a lot of things. And I think that's where Minor Attraction stemmed from, was this idea of like, not something that's just a fair, but more of a cultural proposition, as we like to put it, and something that taps into the broader culture of London, or more the counterculture of London, which is something that I'm, you know, personally, you know, very, you know, fascinated by, and been trying to like bring into art. But yeah, to answer your question, I think it's just, and admittedly, I hate to say, some people in art aren't as cultured as I expected. When I came into it, I thought it was going to be counterculture. I thought it was going to be quite punk. I thought people were going to, like, I remember I mentioned a film to somebody, like a really obvious film, and they're like, what's that? You know, like something like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And I'm like, oh, I thought, my assumption coming into art was that it's high culture. So therefore, if you know about, you know, art, then you must know about independent films. You must know about like music, and apparently not, you know, so people aren't as tapped in as you think. But for me personally, I'm sorry, I don't mean to boast, but that's been my home advantage, because I'm in that, you know. So like the artists I tap into is just artists that I'm into. For example, like I see an album cover and then I would say, oh, I want to work with that artist, and I'll put a show on with them. I wouldn't sort of worry about their market or worry about those kind of things.
Right, yeah, you're worried about the ethos, the actual like cultural value of
exactly,
their message.
yeah, and how we can bring that together and how we can influence other people, you know.